Everybody always talks about how great it was in the 80s and how kids today don't understand how fun the 80s was. Well, let's look at some things that made the 80s suck. Welcome back to the Junk Room, everybody. It's me, the Junkman, coming back at you with another video. And today we're going to talk about the 80s suck. Now, overall, if you ask me personally, growing up in the 80s, it was a great time. A lot of fun. But I hear people today say, oh, kids today, they got it easy. But I hear people say, oh, kids today, they don't realize how fun it was growing up in the 80s. And although there was some rad, cool, bitching things to do in the 80s, there was also some things in the 80s that kind of sucked compared to what kids are probably doing today. Sure, we had better toys. Sure, we had better cartoons. Sure, we had better movies. But that doesn't mean everything was better, does it? So I got a list right here. Got a list of 10 things right here that sucked about the 80s compared to what kids do today. So before we get started, don't forget, the Junk Trilogy is up now. Part 1 of a Halloween horror series. It's going to be a 3-parter, so you want to make sure you check that out. It's kind of like Saul meets Girl Interrupted. You don't want to miss it. Let's just get to number 10. Kids today are being told all over the place, from parents to teachers to people online. Oh, you can't say that. You can't make joke about that. You're going to get canceled if you don't call that person this person, that person. And I know it's confusing and aggravating, but growing up, we were told if you played Dungeons and Dragons, the devil would come into your room and have his way with you. And you would become a devil worshiper, you would kill virgins, and you would just go to Hades, just like that. It was mostly parents. Let me take that back. It was mostly moms. Let's take that back. It was mostly white moms. Take that back. It was mostly white, middle-class moms that really didn't have anything else better to do than see the devil in everything. Now, parents see racism and homophobia, or any kind of ism or any kind of phobia in everything people do. But back then, they saw the devil in everything. Music, comic books, and Dungeons and Dragons. Dungeons and freaking Dragons. I don't know. Oof. Let's go. Number 9. Number 9 is right here on the card. Kids got it made today. You want to research something about some old news article, or you want to find what's your favorite breed of dog and read all about it? You know what you do? You pull your phone out. In 2 seconds, you got all the information right there. Let's say they really want to know what year Barry Loomis, the president of Kenner, was born. They could find it on their phone in seconds. What did we have to do for any information? If we had to do a report for school, or we were just trying to figure out something, we had to go to a local library. First, you had to get a ride there. That was impossible. We didn't have Uber, and no kids taking a taxi back in the 80s. That's crazy. So you get there. You have to worry about getting home later. Maybe if you're lucky, you could ride your bike there if it's close enough. But you get there. You ask the librarian lady. You have to whisper because they'll yell at you. They still do that today, I think. Hey, where can I look up information about Falcon's Maze? And they would send you over to the card catalog system, or the Dewey Decimal System. You know, you pull these little cards out. They were kind of like these, were smaller. You look up what you want to find. Then it's got some little code number, and you have to go track that code number down. I could never track it down. Never would work. It would be like SF123.G or something. And we had 3 stories at the library where I live. I could never find nothing. And let's say it was some old news article you want to look up that was in some old magazine or newspaper. Nope, you didn't use your phone. You know what you used? A fish. Oh, no, I'm not talking about the smelly fish. I'm talking about micro machines. No, I'm not. Why did I say micro machines? I'm talking about microfish. I don't know why they called it that. This is like a big monitor, and you would put these slides in, and it would blow it all up so you could see it in black and white. It was horrible. I guess I never really used the microfish. I know what they are. But we wasn't allowed to touch that part of the library when I was a kid. And by the time I got old enough to go into the microfiche room, I really didn't want to go to the microfiche room. Number 8, let's be honest. Although we had a lot of fun in the 80s, it was freaking boring, wasn't it? Now, when you had something to do, it was a lot of fun. But there really wasn't that much to do. You didn't have any internet. You didn't have every movie you wanted to see at your fingertips. Sure, you could hang out with your friends, go ride a bike, but if your friends were busy, or there was nobody home, wasn't much to do. Most of the time you had maybe one television in the house. At least in the early 80s, you had one television in the house. And if your parents were watching something, they're watching a movie, forget it. You're not going to get the TV for a long time. So you just end up walking around the street or something. We did have a lot of fun in the 80s, but there was a lot of downtime in the 80s too that made it freaking boring. Where are we at? Junkman, this is a bad edit. I mean, you edit a lot, but this one's pretty bad. That's because I forgot to talk about these two. I want to make sure I get them in, so I'm going to edit them somewhere in the video. This should be number 7, and we're going to talk video games. Kid today and their video games. They have helmets you can put on and get inside the game. They got the best graphics in the world. I saw a kid playing a baseball game, and I couldn't tell if it was a baseball game or he was watching a baseball game. It looked great. Now, I love some 80s video games, don't get me wrong. Yeah, I got a Miss Pac-Man over here. But I'm talking about home video games, and for the most part, although there's a few exceptions, Super Mario Brothers, one of the best games ever, still fun today. But come on, we had a lot of boring games. I mean, I had a fake Frogger game called Freeway where I had to get the chicken across the road. You couldn't even already tell it was a chicken. And what about combat? Yeah, army tanks that look like a square. Kids today got it made, for sure. They can even play online with people all across the world. We used to talk about in the 80s how amazing that would be, but we never did get to do it. The only time you got to play a game with somebody was when they came to your house. Most of the time then, it wasn't playing at the same time. It was like Super Mario Brother. You had to wait till somebody died before you got your turn. And if it was somebody good at Super Mario, like yours truly, it could take the other person so long, they just give up and leave the room. They were like, I don't feel like playing, because you already went through 6 worlds before you even got a turn. Okay, and here's another one. Number 6. This is something I wish we could have done. In the 80s, we had limitation on our friends. Now, today's kids, they've got friends in other states, in other cities, even other countries. All over the world, they got friends and people they talk to. Us, growing up in the 80s, we had our neighborhood community. You might have 1 or 2 far out friends that may be a friend of a friend, but for the most part, the people you hung out with, they either all went to your school or in that same little area. You really didn't meet anyone from another state. That was very rare. I mean, you might join some kind of stupid pen pal program, but it wasn't like it is now. And it would be kind of cool to, to have friends in California. And who knows, it could have been fun to have a friend in Albuquerque, but I doubt that. But kids today, they got friends all over the globe. And not only that, they can talk with them instantaneously. Just as fast as you could talk to one of your best friends at school, they could talk to someone over in Australia. It's crazy. Wish we had that in the 80s. The best thing that I can relate kind of to this is there used to be a tobacco company in my town, and it was called Brown and Williams. And they would close up already about 7 or 8 o'clock at night, and we would call in. They had this special number you could call, but it went to a conference room number. And we would call that number about 1 o'clock in the morning. And they would be kids from all over town, not just our school, in that room. Everybody talking back and forth. You couldn't really tell what was going on, but you met some people there. And that was the closest to a chat room we got. I don't know if anyone else ever done that. I don't know how that number got out because you had to enter a password too. It was weird. It was weird. Probably some perv gave it out sitting there listening to us all talk probably. Where are we at now? Here's one. Kids today, they got their favorite television show. They don't care what time it comes on. They don't care what day it comes on. They're not like, hey, sorry, I can't go to the skating rink with you. I got to stay here and watch Unsolved Mysteries at 8 o'clock. Nope. They just watch it whenever. Now, you're saying, well, Junkman, you had a VCR in the 80s. You had a timer on it. But let's be honest. One, it was a complete pain to set that timer. Most of the time, your parents couldn't even do it. You had to do it for your parents. You had to make sure tape was in the VCR. You had to make sure there's enough room on that tape to record the whole program. And heaven forbid there was a football game or something that delayed the program, then it's going to screw your timer all up where you're not going to get the beginning and it's going to cut off. You're not going to get the end of it. But after all that, if you get the timer set right, you have a tape in it, you got enough room in the tape. You also, at least on the VCR I had, maybe it changed, you had to make sure the power was off on the VCR. And if you're like me, you only had one VCR in the house, like most of us, especially in the early 80s, of course. And that one television, if your parents are home watching television, they would have to watch what you're recording, and they weren't going to go for that. They were like, hey, 9 to 5's on Showtime. We're not going to watch Unsolved Mysteries. So if you wanted to see Unsolved Mysteries, and you were lucky enough to have a little small black and white television in your room, that's what I had. Today they got big flat screens in their room. But if you were that lucky to have a little television in your room, you stayed home to make sure you didn't miss it, because you have to wait maybe in the rerun season of the summer to see it again if you were lucky. Kids today are spoiled, aren't they? Number 4. I think this is one we can all relate to. Kids today, they can listen to all the music they want. Any song, any album, any time of the day. Just pull it right up, put an earbud in their ear, and listen to it. But us, we were forced to listen to Don't Worry, Be Happy all day, every day. For at least for a full year. I think it was around 1987. Every day, all day. Every time you got in the car, every time you went in the store, don't worry, be happy now. It was horrible. Sure, it had Robin Williams in the video, and that made it a little bit more fun. But that song, after the first time you heard it, you were sick of it. But it didn't matter. Every radio station is going to play it 20 times an hour. And everywhere you go, don't worry, be happy now. Don't worry, be happy now. Don't worry, be happy now. I hate that shit. Okay, where are we at? Number 3. Now, I'm not sure who can relate to this one here, but kids today, again, they can watch whatever they want to, anytime they want to. Like I said, they don't have to be at home at a special time. But in the 80s, if you like watching something like Leave It to Beaver reruns, Gilligan's Island, Andy Griffith, chances are it came on TBS. And if it came on TBS, you know what that meant? It would start at 5 after and go off at the 5 after. Put it this way. If the Brady Bunch was scheduled to come on at 3 o'clock, on TBS it would come on at 3:05 and go off at 3:35. And this screwed everything up, because let's say you wanted to watch something on TBS, but you knew it wasn't going to go off to 5 minutes after, and then you missed 5 minutes of the other program on another channel you watched. So you were stuck watching TBS all day just because of that 5-minute rule. I don't know who came up with it. Maybe that was their gimmick, to get you to watch the channel more. People was like, well, I guess I'm going to have to watch Petticoat Junction because I'm not going to turn it because I missed the first 5 minutes of Hawaii Five-0. It was genius if that was the reason. Number 2. Kids today and their movie theaters, their IMAX screens. Thing is, they've got the movie theaters, they got the movies so good today. Big screens, the great sound, and they want to stay home and watch it on television or on their phone, even worse. But for us, we went to a movie theater, first off, and not maybe if it's different if you live in a big city, but for the most part, you only had one theater in town. You might have had 2. But chances are you had 1 or 2. And guess how many screens they had? And no, though, they didn't have 12 different screens with the movie of the week playing on 4 of them. You had 3, maybe 4 screens. And you know what? When you went in to watch one of those movies, it was flat. Well, there was probably a little angle, but today they have what they call stadium seating. You know, chairs up like this so no one's head's right in your way. No, they didn't care about that in the 80s. Someone sit in front of you, they sat right in front of you. That's what you got, a big old stupid head to look at. I swear, I went to see Star Wars in the movie theater, but I don't think I ever saw all of Star Wars until it came on video, because most of it was hair in my face. Hair here, or hair everywhere. There was a lot of hair in the 80s, and I don't mean just on your head. So movie theaters sucked big time in the 80s. Like I said, there were only a few screens, so most of the big movies you want to see were just playing on that one screen. So it didn't start every 15 minutes somewhere in your town. The sound was horrible. The floor was sticky. I guess that's still sticky today. But everything about going to the movies, except watching the movie, was pretty horrible, at least compared to today's standards. That leaves us with number 1 thing that sucked as a kid in the 80s. The kids today have got it made, and that's getting back to television. Kids today, they can watch anything on television. I've talked about it 100 times already. Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus, doesn't matter. They can watch iTunes. They can download. If they want to see something, hey, I want to see Wizard of Oz, they can watch Wizard of Oz. We would have to wait until around November every year. But whatever they watch, they can watch at their fingertips. You know what we had, at least in the early 80s? 3 channels. You might got lucky and had a 4th public access channel, but for the most part, you had 3 channels, the 3 major networks, CBS, NBC, ABC. And you had to watch something on one of those 3 channels, or you didn't get to watch nothing at all. And God forbid, if the president decided he wanted to speak that night on national television, you were screwed, because he'd be on all 3 channels. Horrible. The dark times. Now, getting into the 80s, we started getting a little bit more channels. We went from 3 to about 20 by the end of the 80s. Whew. But still, there wasn't nothing on them. That's still the same. I've noticed people that still have satellite, and I'm like, you got 400 channels, and there's like 2 things worth watching. Whew. Oh well. That's a look at some things the kids today Well, let's look at some things that are better today than it was in the 80s when we grew up. Do you agree? Am I wrong about this? Do you think TV was better? Now, I'm not talking about the quality of the programming, which is probably better today, at least for the dramas. I'm talking about those 3 channels or some other things on this list. Or maybe there's some things of the 80s that sucked that we just forgot about. Let me know that and more in the comments below. And as always, thumb up so you like my content. Subscribe to the channel. And we will talk again soon. Very soon. Boo, boo, boo. I want to hit the camera one good time. Oh, that was one good one. I got to end it on a good one there. Boop. Now I'm trying to cheat. See, boom. I guess that was God, just one good. Give me one good one. There we go. There we go.
Hey, Junkman channel popping though.
Thank you, sir, for that unsolicited testimony.